it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I have a recommendation style video today, but I have no particular genre or theme. That's right, today I'm just going to be giving you 5 books that I love so much and I think you should read. They're all from a variety of different authors and genres. I've read them throughout the years, and for various reasons I perhaps haven't mentioned them too much in recommendations videos, so I thought I would compile them together and recommend them for you today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the 5 books I think you should definitely read. The first book that is on my list is The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery by Gabrielle Zevin. This is a book I've read now quite a few years ago, but kind of came back into my mind after I most recently read A Man Called Ove. I loved A Man Called Ove, and so many of you guys seem to really love that book as well based on my most recent vlog, and I feel very strongly if you love that book and haven't checked out The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery, you definitely should, because I guarantee you will love it, because it definitely has some parallels in story. But The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery follows our main character, as you can imagine, A.J. Fickery. And he runs a small independent bookstore in a vacation town. At the beginning of the story, A.J. is kind of lost his view on life. His wife has passed away, he's grumpy, and the bookstore that once brought him so much joy isn't really providing the same solace it once used to, and he seems to be drifting further and further away from everyone around him. However, at the beginning of this book, AJ's life is thrown upside down when a mysterious package is left in his bookstore, and this package takes the form of a small child. And now AJ finds himself on the precipice of a new life, literally, and finds himself in a caregiver situation. And from there, you kind of follow him as he begins to make new connections, kind of find a new lease on life, ultimately kind of sees life and see that it is in fact worth living. This book is absolutely so charming. For one, obviously it does have a bookstore setting. There's lots of discussion on the love of books and just in general how literature can bring people together, but also just has that charming, heartfelt story of a person who really feels checked out and doesn't feel like life has much left to give them in terms of happiness, kind of discovering a ground two and realizing that there is so much more that it might be able to offer them. It's beautiful, it's family oriented, it will definitely make you cry. It's just soft, heartwarming, all of those words. I think about it quite frequently, and it definitely came immediately to mind once I finished A Man Called Ove, which I also loved and also features a grumpy old man finding a new lease on life. So if that is a book trope you're into, check out The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery. The next book I have to recommend is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. You might be familiar with Celeste Ng's other work, which is Little Fires Everywhere, which is incredibly popular. There's a television show adaptation. I will say my personal favorite work of hers is Everything I Never Told You. I do feel like she's an absolute master craftsman when it comes to creating a small town setting and creating lots of family drama and intensity, but this book opens with Lydia having just died, but the rest of her family doesn't know that yet. This is a story that follows a Chinese American family set in Ohio during the 1970s, and Lydia is kind of considered the prized child. She bears the expectations of both of her parents, basically being able to achieve all of the dreams that they themselves were not able to accomplish earlier in their life. And so begins the unraveling of this tale in this family, and ultimately everything they never told each other. This is a book that documents the entire family saga. You follow perspectives of every member in this family, including the parents throughout their entire lives, kind of leading and culminating in this moment of Lydia's passing. It's dramatic, it's emotional, it's also incredibly intense, and structurally how it's told, it does have a feeling of a thriller moment as well, as you're obviously also trying to uncover the mystery of Lydia's passing, which occurred in the first few pages of this book. I love this story so much. I also feel like it's due for a reread for myself personally, but this book is just excellent. I also feel like it should for sure be adapted. I'm not sure if it's already kind of started in that process, but this book is so intense and just has so many incredible elements to it, and if you haven't read it, you should definitely check it out. It's for sure a book I love. The next book I have to recommend is The Unseen World by Liz Moore. This is another kind of family drama focused story, but instead of being multi-perspective, it primarily follows our main character and her sort of search and journey to uncover her father's mysterious past throughout her entire life. That being said, this follows our main character Ada, and she is raised by her genius but eccentric single father named David. And he directs a computer science lab in the Boston area in the 1980s. Ada is homeschooled and travels with her father to work every day, and by the age of 12, she is a painfully shy child prodigy. And as the lab begins to gain acclaim, at the same time, her father, David's past kind of begins to resurface, as well as his mind begins to falter. This sort of creates a shift both in their relationship, and Ada finds herself not only kind of in the center of trying to understand her father as she kind of begins to lose the man right in front of her, but also turns Ada virtually into an orphan. We follow again Ada throughout her entire life, and kind of as she's on this search to understand her father. Centrally to the story is also computer science and like AI and like technology, and there's sort of a mystery very much wrapped up into that. I am by no means a computer science expert, but I found the setting as well as the language used, I feel like was very, very effective for the story. It was by no means boring. It kind of has like a sci-fi thriller technology component wrapped up in a very compelling, emotional, and heartfelt story following Ada throughout her entire life. I really, really enjoyed this book. It was one of my favorite books of the year when I read it. I gave it 5 stars and would highly, highly recommend it. The next book I'm going to chat about is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. This is one of my all-time favorite fantasy series, and I don't feel like I talk about it too much on my channel, at least recently, though to be fair, Brandon Sanderson and Robin Hobb have been taking up a lot of my mental space and a lot of my channel for the past like 15 months. So I thought I would talk about The Lies of Locke Lamora once again because the 4th book actually comes out later this year, so lots to be excited for. The Lies of Locke Lamora is honestly a super fun, heist-centered fantasy story, and if you have not checked it out, I would highly encourage you to do so, especially if you're fans of like YA fantasy by Leigh Bardugo and the like. I really feel like The Lies of Locke Lamora would be right up your street. But this is a story we follow our main character Locke, and in the first one, it does a really fantastic job kind of being in the present, which basically follows Locke and his group of friends as they're trying to pull off an impossible heist and steal from a group of impossible people, but it's paralleled with Locke's childhood and his training with that same group of friends to kind of give you context not only about Locke's life, but also his skill set. This book, I really feel like balances a lot of heart. Locke as a main character is incredibly likable, and so are the friends and the friendships that are present within this story as well, but it couples that with honestly a fascinating plot that is incredibly fast-paced and one that will also trick you. I personally am such a huge fan of a book that kind of puts me in the middle of all these different machinations and I have no idea how or why it's happening, and seeing the ultimate payoff at the end is just so good. Same reason why I love whodunit style mystery stories, because I love the big reveal. I love to see them explain how they were able to do X, Y, and Z to figure out how the bad guy did it. But in the case of Locke Lamora, they're able to steal everyone's money and get away with it and laugh their entire way home. Lies of Locke Lamora is just so charming and clever, and I also feel like Scott Lynch does a fantastic job escalating the story with every single book, kind of making you grow closer to the main characters present in the story, but also kind of experiencing how these smaller city central heists are kind of growing in scale as well as in consequence throughout the books too. Just so entertaining and so much fun. If you haven't checked this fantasy series out, you should definitely do it. And the last book I'm going to recommend is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. N.K. Jemisin, one of my all-time favorite authors. I feel like it's just been too long since I've talked about her, so here we are. But The City We Became is her newer release that is contemporary fantasy or urban fantasy, given it is set in a city landscape, and it is just so good, so clever, so imaginative, as you would expect from such an incredible author as N.K. Jemisin is. But this book is honestly about a city that is alive. In this world, basically cities can kind of reach a level in their maturity where they fully awaken and kind of manifest itself in one single person. In New York City, our main character is currently in the process of waking up. But unfortunately, there is an evil force that is trying to stop the city from being born, and this results in kind of each borough kind of breaking off and being personified in its own single person. So instead of there being one person, we now have 5 characters that each individually represent a different neighborhood within New York City, and we follow them as they kind of come together to try to save New York and also defeat this evil power that's also trying to infect every citizen of this city as well. so many positive things to say about this book, but first and foremost, the character work and just how incredibly clever this idea of the manifestation of each borough being a person and how perfect these characters are written to represent these places. I only lived in New York for 3 years, but N.K. Jemisin, you can just tell, loves and knows so much about this city, and it's just encapsulated within this book so well. On top of that, the plot is really, really intense. You're kind of just thrown in and trying to figure out what this mysterious power is. And all of these characters are kind of just waking up into their own powers as well, and you see them unite together as well as problem solve on the go to defeat this evil being. On top of the fantasy components of the story, N.K. Jemisin does such a fantastic job weaving in real social and political issues which are present in the fabric of our society now, with or without a fantastical evil force trying to take advantage of these sentiments that already exist. This book perfectly balances characters, magic, as well as just being so self-aware in what it's trying to craft. Absolutely fascinating. I hope there are more books within this city world that are coming out in the future following different cities. Honestly, The City We Became was absolutely so satisfying, so clever, and I loved every single second of it. Alrighty guys, those are 5 books that I personally love oh so very much, and I implore you to check out. Let me know down below some books you've read that you love, as I would love to know. I'm always looking to add books onto my TBR. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye!